Hello, and welcome to Sleepy Paradise. My name is Sam Wilson, and I'll be your guide tonight. Through quiet fields, through unfolding leaves. Through the gentle, living science of CRISPR plants. Here, in this soft moment between wake and rest. You don't have to do anything at all. Just breathe. And let your thoughts sway like tall grass in a desert breeze. You are safe here. You are warm. And the world around you is about to open in a new way. Tonight's story is a slow walk through science. But not the kind of science that rushes or demands. No flashing lights. No ticking clocks. Just the rhythmic breath of discovery. And the quiet promise of change. We begin with a question. What if we could help plants grow where they never could before? What if barren soil could bloom, not with force, but with understanding? What if life, your food, your shade, your oxygen, could be edited to endure? That is what CRISPR whispers. CRISPR, like a careful gardener, doesn't tear things apart. It moves gently within the genes. Finding old scripts, making small notes. Helping life remember how to thrive again. Imagine the desert. Silent. Vast. But not dead. Beneath the sand lie roots that once touched water. Above the cracked surface, the sun still sings its warm light. And now, somewhere in a quiet lab, scientists are listening to the language of these forgotten lands. Not to control them, but to coax life from them again. You may have heard the word before, CRISPR. It sounds like a tool. And it is. But more than that, it's an invitation. An invitation to reimagine how nature might heal. With our help, and not in spite of us. And tonight, we explore that healing together. We will visit the code inside every leaf. The dry air that teaches resilience. The greenhouses without borders. And the slow, steady bloom of possibility. Each chapter is a step on soft earth. Each idea, a seed gently placed in your dreaming mind. You do not have to remember everything. You do not have to understand all the science. You only need to feel it, like a breeze through an open window. Let your eyes close. Let your thoughts drift. Somewhere, a seed is beginning again. Somewhere, a root is reaching toward life. And here, with me, you are beginning a story of hope. Written not just in soil, but in light, code, and breath. Welcome to the world of CRISPR plants. Welcome to a desert in bloom. Welcome to Sleepy Paradise. Chapter 1, Seeds of a New Beginning. There is something tender about beginnings. They don't shout. They don't rush. They simply wait. And so, our story begins with a seed. Small. Ordinary, perhaps. You've seen one before, curled in your palm, light as a thought. But this seed, like all seeds, carries a secret. You hold it gently between your fingers. And for a moment, time softens. You are no longer in your bed, but standing at the edge of a quiet field. The air is warm. Still. Full of soft golden light. The earth beneath your feet hums with ancient possibility. This seed is asleep. But inside, something stirs. It holds no maps, no memories of deserts or fertile plains. It simply trusts the light when it comes. And the soil when it opens. But tonight, you wonder. What if this seed could know what's coming? What if it could sense the future dryness of the soil? Or the scorching breath of long summers? before it ever breaks open. You kneel and plant the seed with care. In this dreamlike place, time is flexible. You watch as the seed begins to change. Not because of chance, but because someone, somewhere, taught it how. That someone is not a gardener in the usual sense. Not with sun hats and shovels, but with microscopes and silence. They work not in fields, but in quiet labs, editing life one letter at a time. CRISPR. The word feels strange in your mouth, like a whisper snapped in glass. But its work is gentle. It is a tool, yes, but also a question. What if nature could carry a bit of foresight? Inside the seed's DNA, its spiraling code. Are instructions written millions of years ago. How to sprout. How to unfold into leaf. How to reach for the sun without ever seeing it. CRISPR doesn't rewrite the book. It simply adds a line, or removes a phrase. Like editing a bedtime story so the ending fits the child who listens. You watch as the seed, now stirred with this careful touch, grows. First a root, pale and determined, pushing downward as if it remembers water. Then a shoot, green, trembling, hopeful. This plant will not need much. Not like its ancestors. Its roots sip water more slowly. Its leaves curl wisely under sun. It remembers hardship it never lived. And so you walk among other seeds, each with a future that bends toward survival. Tomatoes that bloom in dry heat. Wheat that nods in salty air. Bananas that laugh at the diseases that once undid them. This is not magic. It is biology shaped with care. Like teaching a child to swim before they fall into the river. You lie down in the grass beside your growing plant. The air hums. The soil is warm. You feel the pulse of science. Not as noise, but as rhythm. The earth no longer chooses winners and losers based on geography alone. With CRISPR, the plant's chances stretch. It does not conquer the desert. It befriends it. And still, the question lingers gently. What are we really doing when we edit life? Are we rescuing it from a harsher world? Or are we rewriting nature's poetry? You think of farmers in lands where crops once failed. Of children whose futures depend on fields not yet imagined. Of roots that no longer stop short of thirst. And as the sun dips low on this imagined horizon, you watch the first flower open. A soft white bloom shaped like a beginning. You breathe slowly. This is not the end of something wild. It is the start of something adaptive. And adaptation, after all, is just another kind of love. The seed sleeps again now. But deeper. Wiser. Ready. And you, too, feel the weight of possibility settle gently on your chest. You close your eyes, and ask. If a leaf can hold a memory, what might it be trying to say next? And so you follow that whisper. Into the veins of the leaf itself. Into the silent story it carries. Written in light and code and time. Chapter 2, The Whisper Inside Every Leaf. You open your eyes into a softer world. Where the morning light filters through a canopy of slow-breathing green. The air is still, thick with peace. Above you, leaves shimmer gently. As if they are whispering stories through the hush of photosynthesis. You reach up and trace the edge of a leaf with your fingertips. It feels like silk, but firmer, alive with purpose. In its quiet presence, you sense something hidden. Something old and precise moving just beneath the green. This is not just a leaf. It is a library. Every cell within it holds a script. A story passed down from root to root, from stem to sky. Written not in ink, but in 4 letters, A, T, C, G. These letters form the genetic code, the universal alphabet of life. Your own cells carry it. So do trees, grass, and grains. It's a language without words. Yet every leaf speaks it fluently. You listen closely. Not with ears, but with imagination. In the leaf's thin veins, you follow a journey millions of years long. A journey of survival, of change, of relentless adaptation. The way it unfurls toward light. The way it thickens in dry seasons. The way its color deepens or fades. Each of these is a sentence in the plant's ancient story. CRISPR is not a loud invention. It does not tear apart the script. It moves with care, like a poet editing a fragile verse. It finds the line where a plant struggles. Perhaps where it forgets how to hold water. Or where it trusts an environment that has already changed. And there, in the smallest stretch of genetic rhythm, CRISPR snips or replaces. Not to control, but to encourage. Imagine the leaf as a map of memory. It remembers when its ancestors drank deeply from the soil. It remembers the pests that once fed on its stem. It remembers how to open to the sun, and when to close against the cold. But some memories are no longer useful. Some need revising, not to forget the past, but to survive the present. You watch as a scientist, somewhere far away, uses CRISPR to change just one letter in the plant's code. A single base pair, like replacing a note in a song. And suddenly, the leaf grows with a resilience it never had. It doesn't wilt as quickly in heat. It stands taller through salt and drought. It becomes not something unnatural, but something newly aware. This kind of awareness is not consciousness. It is adaptation made deliberate. It is evolution with a flashlight in hand. You run your fingers down the leaf again. And imagine all that it holds. The hunger it will nourish. The oxygen it will release. The future seeds it will scatter. Each act, shaped gently by the quiet art of gene editing. Still, it looks the same to you. Green, veined, delicate. Because CRISPR does not give plants bright new colors or odd new shapes. It works beneath the surface. The whisper remains a whisper. And maybe, you think, that's how real change often begins. Not with noise, but with listening. You close your eyes beneath the shade of that whispering tree. The wind is light. A few leaves dance on their stems, carrying stories you can almost understand. And as you drift deeper into this green stillness, you begin to wonder. If every leaf is a page in this quiet book of life, what happens when we begin to write new chapters? The answer may lie not in the leaves above, but in the lands below. Places where rain no longer falls, and roots stretch in silence. And so you follow those roots. Into the heat. Into the hush of sun-cracked ground. Where a new question waits beneath the surface. Chapter 3, Editing Eden. You find yourself standing at the edge of a garden. Not a lush paradise overflowing with vines and color. But something quieter. Simpler. Still in the process of becoming. The soil is dark, freshly turned, warm with promise. You take a step forward. And the garden receives you like a long-lost thought. The plants here are small, some barely more than buds. Yet they pulse with potential. This is not Eden as it once was, but Eden as it might be. Rebuilt gently, gene by gene, by those who have begun to understand nature's code, and speak it back to her in kindness. Once, all things grew wild. Nature, left to her own rhythm, danced through drought and bloom alike. She was slow to change, but always learning. Always adapting through time, storm, and silence. Now, we have entered her garden with quiet tools in hand. Not plows. Not axes. But needles of light. Microscopes. CRISPR. You walk between rows of plants that seem ordinary. But they are not. Each one is part of an ancient story retold with modern care. A tomato vine curls upward beside you. Its fruit not yet red, but already resilient. Its seeds were edited not to need as much water. Not to fear the dry wind. A nearby cassava root grows heavier than its ancestors ever could. Not swollen with unnatural force, but with the gentle push of improved understanding. An extra gene turned off here. A dormant one revived there. It's easy to imagine that editing nature might feel harsh. Like carving into something sacred. But here, in this soft garden, you feel no violence. Only precision. Only a kind of reverence. The scientists who tend this place do not speak of domination. They speak of resilience. Of sustainability. Of food security in places long denied it. You pause near a raised bed of rice. The grains nod in a breeze that smells of memory. This rice carries a message from farmers across the world. From lands where flooding ruins crops one season, and drought scorches them the next. In their struggles, science found questions. In those questions, CRISPR found answers. The plants grown here don't demand perfection. They aren't flawless or futuristic. They are simply prepared. They know how to hold on to nutrients longer. How to fight pests without needing chemicals. How to bloom in places where blooming once meant risk. And in this way, Eden returns. Not as a lost paradise, but as a living collaboration. Still, there's a whisper of tension in the air. A soft uncertainty. Because every act of creation, no matter how loving, asks a deeper question. How much change is too much? You walk farther. Past an apple tree whose roots have been encouraged to grow deeper. Farther into dry soil. It thrives. But is it still an apple as we once knew? Somewhere, an old gardener might ask. Is this still nature? Or something else entirely? You sit beneath the shade of a tree not yet named. Its leaves are silver-edged. Its scent faintly sweet. It was edited for beauty, but also for survival in harsher climates. It hums with something new. Not artificial, but unfamiliar. You listen, as you always do. And the wind offers no answers. Only possibilities. In the end, you understand. Editing Eden is not about changing nature. It's about helping her remember how to thrive. In a world that's changing faster than she can. It's about honoring the old rhythms, while adding new instruments to the symphony. You lie back on the soft grass. The sky overhead is wide and open, as if the universe itself is waiting to see what grows next. In this calm moment, you realize Nature is not fragile. She is not offended by help. She only asks that we listen as we touch her. That we remember we are not outside of her. We are part of her story too. And now, as you rest beside these altered roots and blossoming branches, you begin to wonder. What becomes of a garden when the rain forgets to fall? What happens when the earth begins to dry? And plants must remember thirst. Like an old song they haven't sung in years. And so, your thoughts drift toward landscapes where rivers sleep, and clouds no longer weep, toward the long, slow silence of drought in motion. Chapter 4, Drought in Slow Motion. You drift now into a quieter place. A place where time stretches thin, and the wind hums softly over cracked earth. This is not a violent land. It doesn't scream with storms or split open in fury. No, drought arrives slowly. Like a thought left unanswered. Like a breath held too long. You find yourself hovering above a landscape that once knew water. You see the ghost of a riverbed. Its curves remembered only in outline. Etched into the bones of the land. Trees stand like statues, still rooted but stillness itself. Their leaves curled, their thirst hidden deep. You lower yourself gently to the surface. The soil crumbles like memory beneath your fingertips. It holds no moisture now, only the shadow of rain. And still, somehow, life persists. A single sprig of green breaks through the dust. Small, defiant. You kneel beside it. It does not ask for much, only enough. You begin to feel what drought really is. Not just the absence of water, but the presence of longing. In this stillness, you remember. Plants do not wait helplessly. Even in the face of dry skies and vanishing rivers. They try. They adapt in quiet ways. Some shrink their leaves to lose less moisture. Some grow deeper roots, digging for water like memory buried beneath time. But evolution, left alone, is slow. Slower than the speed of change in today's world. And so, science steps forward, not to interrupt, but to accelerate nature's own intention. With CRISPR, scientists now work inside the blueprint of plants. Searching not for perfection, but for resilience. They look for the genes that control water use. Those that tell the stomata, the tiny pores on leaves, when to open and when to stay shut. They adjust them gently, so that the plant learns to breathe differently. Just enough to stay alive, without draining the soil dry. You rise now, gliding over a field of CRISPR-edited plants, standing tall in the same dry earth. These crops don't look strange. They look calm. Their leaves don't droop. Their roots move with quiet intelligence. Deeper, smarter, more efficient. You reach down and touch a stem. It's firm. Strong. Inside it flows water. Not wasted, not rushed. Carried like a treasure. This is not excess. This is balance. A lesson rewritten into their DNA. By hands that listened first. Then edited later. You walk among these plants like a guest in a sacred hall. They speak not in sound, but in survival. One tells you, I remember how to grow without constant rain. Another says, I have learned to bloom on less. And another, barely taller than your knee, whispers, I stretch my roots through stone if I must. They are not unnatural. They are prepared. And yet, you feel the wind shift, carrying a question deeper than biology. What does it mean to survive where others have not? You think of farmers in parched lands, whose hope has withered with their crops. You think of children for whom drought means more than inconvenience. It means hunger, even silence. And now, these CRISPR plants, able to grow in such quiet suffering, offer something small but extraordinary. Possibility. Not just for survival, but for restoration. Not just for yield, but for dignity. Still, you feel no triumph here. Only humility. Because helping life survive does not mean we've conquered the desert. Only that we've chosen to stay and listen to it. You sit on a sun-warmed stone, watching the golden light bend across the fields. The plants sway not because of rain, but because of the wind's memory of it. And somewhere deep in the soil, a root curls just a little farther, pulling life from where there seems to be none. This is what CRISPR can offer. Not miracles, but gentle adjustments that echo nature's own will. But drought, you realize, is not only about water. It is about time. About how long a plant can wait. How long a seed can dream. And that leads you to wonder. What else do plants remember? Not in leaf or stem, but in the deep spiral of their code. Do they remember rain that fell centuries ago? Do they remember shade that no longer stretches across these lands? As the sun lowers and the sky cools to a soft pink, you rise once more and begin your descent. Not into darkness, but into memory itself. For in the chapters to come, you will find that some plants hold within them the memory of rain. Chapter 5, The Memory of Rain. The wind tonight carries no water. Yet you hear it whisper through stalks of wheat, swaying not in grief, but in grace. You walk slowly through a golden field that has learned to live without expecting rain. This is a field shaped by memory. Not the kind you store in photographs or stories, but the kind hidden in the spiral of life itself. You pause and place your hand on the husk of a plant. It is firm, dry, and strong. Inside it beats a kind of remembering. Not of last season, but of long-forgotten climates. When rivers ran full, and roots reached water just beneath the surface. The genetic code of plants is not just instruction. It is remembrance. Each stem, each leaf, each seed carries echoes of a different time, a different world. Somewhere, encoded in silence, are responses to old droughts, old storms, old seasons of bloom. Plants do not forget. They hold on to lessons, like stories whispered down through generations. But memory alone is not always enough. Sometimes, in the face of new and unfamiliar stress, those old memories lie dormant, buried in the code, waiting for someone to notice. And this is where CRISPR steps in. Not as a force of rewriting, but as a gentle reader, searching for forgotten lines, and softly nudging them awake. In a small lab far from this dreaming field, a scientist looks through a microscope, finding a gene long left untouched. It once helped a distant ancestor survive a dry spell. Now, with the world warming, that same trait might be needed again. So, with care and quiet, CRISPR is used not to insert something new, but to remind the plant of what it already knows. A touch. A shift. A restoration of its own ancestral memory. And then, the seed grows. The leaves unfurl. And in the heat, it does not wither. It recalls how to close its pores when the air turns harsh. It remembers how to thicken its walls. How to store water like a sacred secret. It remembers rain. You stand in the center of this edited field. Though nothing about it feels unnatural. There are no blinking lights, no sharp edges. Just wind, and wheat, and the soft hum of resilience. You run your fingers through the stalks. Each one standing on the shoulders of countless ancestors. Each one carrying both past and future. In a single strand of DNA. They do not complain. They do not resist. They simply respond. And in this calm, dry air, you realize something profound. Survival is not always about strength. Sometimes, it's about memory. About knowing how to bend. How to wait. How to hope for rain. But not depend on it. The plants here live on less. But lose nothing in dignity. Their grains are full. Their posture tall. They offer food. But also wisdom. You take a deep breath and lie down between the rows. Watching the sky slowly dim to lavender. Above, no clouds gather. Still, there is no fear in the silence. The plants do not need rescue. Only understanding. And perhaps that's what science can offer. Not a rescue. But a reunion. A reunion between past. Chapter 6, A Garden Without Borders. You wake to a soft glow. As though the sun itself has decided to rise gently. Without haste. Without heat. You are inside a greenhouse. But not the kind you know. There are no metal frames, no humming fans. Only warmth, light, and the steady breath of growing things. It is a quiet haven. Here, nature is protected from the chaos of weather. The plants do not fear frost or drought. They rise each day knowing the light will come. But as you move through the rows of tomatoes, millet, cassava, and rice, a thought forms softly in your chest. What if the world outside didn't have to be so hostile? What if this careful piece wasn't locked behind glass? You touch the leaves gently. They are vibrant, untroubled. Yet they hold no illusions. They know their safety comes from enclosure. From shielding. But a revolution is happening. Not outside this greenhouse. But within the very structure of the plants themselves. Once, the only way to grow food in harsh climates was to bring the environment under control. Now, with CRISPR, we ask a different question. What if we could bring control into the plant? You begin to float above the greenhouse. Rising into the sky. Watching the earth spread out beneath you. Mountains, deserts, coasts, dry plains. Each region with its own rhythm. Its own barriers to growth. And yet, with every passing season, those barriers are weakening. In arid valleys once too dry for roots to grip, edited crops now stretch toward the sky. Their genetic code has been guided to tolerate heat. To sip water slowly. To bloom in sunlight that would have once burned. Along salty coastlines. Plants rise from brackish soil. No longer afraid of the salt once considered poison. Even in high mountain regions. where growing seasons are short and brutal. New seeds unfurl with confidence, unfazed by cold winds, unshaken by thinner air. It is not magic. It is precision. A careful conversation between human knowledge and plant potential. Borders that once defined what was possible are dissolving. Geography is no longer destiny. Latitude is not a sentence. You float down now, landing in a small garden outside a stone home in a once barren village. A child runs barefoot between rows of green. A grandmother kneels in the soil, her fingers pressing new seeds into the earth. Without fear. The crops here are CRISPR edited. But they do not feel artificial. They feel free. Free from the dependence on unpredictable rain. Free from fragile soil. Free from being confined to tiny, fertile corners of the world. They grow not because we changed the land, but because we helped the plants remember how to thrive in it. CRISPR becomes not a boundary, but a bridge. It does not isolate. It connects. A rice plant from Bangladesh shares drought resistance with one in Mali. A tomato in Chile bears the wisdom of an ancestor in India. Gene by gene, a new kind of migration begins. Not of people, but of potential. In the hush of evening, you sit beside a field that shouldn't exist. And yet, it flourishes. The sun sets behind distant hills. The plants sway not in defiance, but in deep harmony with their place. They are no longer strangers to the soil. They belong. And you wonder, what if food security isn't just about abundance, but about access? What if, through quiet science, we make a world where no land is too harsh, no climate too cruel, no people forgotten? A garden without borders is not just a field. It is an idea. A hope stitched into leaf and root. You close your eyes as the air cools. Around you, the plants breathe out oxygen, as if thanking you for noticing. But just beneath the soil, another miracle unfolds. One you cannot see, but one that carries the same rhythm of survival. Roots, unseen, are speaking. Negotiating, adapting. Reaching through darkness with ancient wisdom. And now you follow them. Into the deep, rich silence beneath your feet. Chapter 7. The language beneath the soil. You step softly into darkness. Not a frightening dark, but a living one. The soil opens slowly beneath your feet. Not as a fall, but as a descent. A gentle invitation downward. Into the quiet realm below. This is the underworld of plants. Not mythic, not shadowed in fear, but warm, rich, and endlessly alive. You kneel and press your hand to the earth. You feel a subtle hum. As if something just beyond hearing is speaking. Not in words, but in pulses. This is where roots grow. But more than that, this is where roots listen. They are not blind tendrils simply searching for water. They are sensors, explorers, communicators. They know the contours of their world. By feeling it. Each root tip, each fine hair, is a question reaching into the dark. Where is the moisture? Is there room to grow? Is anyone else nearby? And in return, the soil answers. Through pressure. Through nutrients. Through invisible chemical whispers. That guide the next move. You float deeper now. Into this tangled unday. Into this tangled underground symphony. Here, roots stretch like fingers across time. They twist around each other. They pass messages. Not with sound, but with molecules. They warn of drought. They signal the presence of pests. They share knowledge of what lies ahead, just as neurons do in the mind. This is the hidden intelligence of the soil. But roots don't speak alone. They speak with the microbiome. A vast network of fungi, bacteria, and microscopic life. Woven into every clump of earth. They form symbiotic bonds. Trading sugars for nutrients. Help for shelter. Fungi extend the reach of roots. Far beyond what they could achieve alone. Becoming a second nervous system. For the plants above. Some scientists call it the Wood Wide Web. But to you, it feels more like a dream. A language with no grammar. But perfect understanding. You glide between the roots. Noticing how some stretch deep and straight. While others weave and curl in embrace. You follow one root in particular. Strong, slow-moving. Seeking something. It encounters a patch of dry soil. Instead of turning back, it pauses. It sends a message. A call to a nearby fungus. That knows how to unlock phosphorus hidden in the rock. The fungus answers. A partnership forms. And in this act, the root survives. This is not competition. It is collaboration. It is community. Written in carbon. You feel the gentle awe of it settle in your chest. The understanding that even below the surface, nothing grows alone. And yet, not all roots thrive. In some regions, the soil is broken. Stripped of life, hardened by salt. Emptied by overuse or poisoned by the past. Roots stretch into it and find no answers. No partners. No balance. But even here, science is listening. CRISPR, once again, becomes a tool. Not to force new traits, but to restore relationships. Scientists are finding genes in plants that allow them to better collaborate with microbes. They edit these genes to reopen closed dialogues, reviving old partnerships that evolution had forgotten, or the soil had silenced. A plant that once struggled in poor soil can now survive, not by strength alone, but by remembering how to ask for help. You reach out and touch one such root. Thick, breathing, aware. It doesn't resist you. It welcomes you. And you realize, the language of the soil is one of reciprocity. Everything given is returned. Everything shared is remembered. It is not loud, but it is enduring. You rise slowly through the layers of earth, passing fibers, threads, networks. As you near the surface again, the world above waits. Sunlit, quiet, unaware of the thousands of conversations happening just beneath its feet. But you know now. You've heard the whispers. You've seen the reaching. And you carry that knowing with you as you step once more into the daylight. Because understanding the roots is only the beginning. Above ground, another miracle is underway. One just as quiet, but made of light. And so, with soil still clinging gently to your fingertips, you look upward, toward the leaves, toward the sun, toward the green alchemy that turns light into life. Chapter 8, The Green Alchemy. You lift your gaze from the roots to the canopy above. And the light finds you. Soft, golden, unhurried. It dances across the leaves like a blessing. This is where another miracle happens. Not beneath your feet, but above your head. In the wide open palms of plants turned skyward. You rise gently, floating upward into the green. The world becomes filtered through chlorophyll, bathed in a quiet glow. Here, nestled in the rustle of leaves, you come face to face with an ancient magic that unfolds every day without applause. Photosynthesis. It is not a spell, though it feels like one. It is a process so precise, so elegant, that it sustains almost every breath ever taken. The leaf you rest on now, broad, trembling in the wind, is a chamber of transformation. It takes in carbon dioxide from the air, pulls water up from the roots, and with a touch of sunlight, spins these simple things into sugar. This sugar becomes fuel, not just for the plant, but for you. For every bird in the sky, every deer in the field, every cell in your body that once ate fruit, or grain, or leaf. Light, turned into life. You imagine a single photon of sunlight, traveling millions of miles, to land, at last, on this leaf. It is absorbed by a pigment called chlorophyll, a green gatekeeper. And in that quiet moment of capture, a chain reaction begins. Electrons dance, water splits, energy flows, and sugar, sweet, vital, unseen, emerges. This is the alchemy of survival. It powers the plant, feeds the roots, and stores itself in seeds, so life can begin again. And it does all this without noise, without waste, without taking more than it needs. You float now among 1,000 leaves, each one performing this silent ballet. They reach upward not in greed, but in partnership. Because the plant gives something back too. Oxygen. The very breath you just took. A gift from this process. A byproduct of the leaf's generosity. Photosynthesis is the planet's original contract. I will feed myself and others, if you give me light. But even this ancient rhythm, perfect for millions of years, is now challenged. The world has warmed. Drought tightens. Light arrives in harsher bursts. Carbon rises. Balance trembles. And so, once again, science leans in. Not to rewrite the leaf's song, but to fine-tune its harmony. CRISPR enters this story here too. Scientists are exploring ways to help plants photosynthesize more efficiently, to adjust how quickly the leaf opens its pores, how it captures light in extreme sun, how it avoids damage when the air becomes too dry. In rice, for example, edits have been made to make the photosynthetic pathway more like maize, a plant evolved for heat and brightness. By borrowing genetic lessons from one species, another becomes more resilient. Imagine a field of wheat, not just surviving, but thriving in hotter, brighter conditions, without needing extra water. Imagine food security not as a hope, but as a process. optimized by the very plants that feed us. Yet the leaves remain the same to your eyes. Still green. Still soft. Still full of silent kindness. The science may be complex, but the result is simple. More food. From less input. With less strain on the planet. As you float among the branches, you hear the wind weave through the leaves. Like a lullaby. You realize the sun does not ask for anything in return. It gives freely. And the leaves, in turn, become translators of that gift. You reach out and touch one. Cool, still, strong. You whisper a thank you. And as you begin to descend again, carried gently by the evening breeze, you carry with you a deeper understanding. Life is not powered by complexity. It is powered by transformation. By the choice to take in light and make something nourishing from it. And in the silence that follows, you begin to wonder. If plants can transform sunlight into sugar, what can we transform? With the light of our own awareness? And perhaps, somewhere deep within the seed, there's a memory of that first burst of light. And what it meant to begin. You now return to the ground, where the seed once slept, and where the cycle prepares to begin again. Chapter 9, The Sleeping Seed. You return to the earth. Soft and quiet. Where the light above has not yet arrived. Here, in the hush beneath the surface, you find it. Small, unremarkable, but full of everything. A seed. It rests beneath a shallow layer of soil. Surrounded by darkness. Cradled in stillness. You lie beside it. Breathing as slowly as it does. Because a seed does not rush. It does not unfold at the first sign of sunlight. Or scatter at the first drop of rain. It waits. This waiting is not idleness. It is intelligence. Inside, the seed holds instructions more ancient than language. A carefully folded map. Written in DNA and memory. Wrapped in its shell is the promise of root and leaf. Of stalk and fruit. Of harvests not yet born. But only when the world says yes. Only when temperature, moisture, and time align. Will that map be read? You close your eyes and listen as the soil speaks. There are signals in the dark. Minerals drifting. Fungal threads reaching. Moisture rising and falling like breath. The seed listens to them all. It is not passive. It is choosing. Choosing when to begin. This is dormancy. The art of patience. The brilliance of potential conserved. And in a changing world, this patience becomes a question. Because now, more than ever, seeds face uncertainty. Winters arrive late. Rain falls wrong. Heat creeps in too soon. Some seeds wait too long and never grow. Others wake too early and perish. Here, CRISPR becomes not an intrusion, but a guide. Scientists study how seeds sense time. What genes control their dormancy? What switches flick on or off? In response to heat or cold. They gently edit those switches. Not to force the seed open, but to help it recognize when the world is truly ready. Imagine a seed that waits through false springs, ignoring temporary warmth, until the real growing season begins. Imagine crops that no longer fail, because they started life too soon. This is the promise of gene-edited dormancy. Not haste. Wisdom. You open your eyes to the dark once more. The seed beside you has not changed, and yet you feel its quiet readiness. Its shell, hard but sensitive, is not a prison. It is protection. It keeps the future safe, until the present is kind enough to meet it. You marvel at how so much life can remain still. How something so small can carry so much. A single change in its code, a shift in how it senses heat, or how quickly it absorbs water, can mean the difference between growth and ruin. But still, the seed is not afraid. It trusts its timing. And now, so do you. You reach out and gently brush your fingers over the soil above it. The earth feels cool, a sign that it is not yet time. You imagine the first moment of cracking, when the shell splits and a rootlet presses downward, seeking gravity, while the shoot stretches toward light it has never seen. That moment is a kind of faith. But until then, the seed sleeps, and in its sleep, it holds the architecture of an entire plant. Just as a dream holds the shape of a morning not yet lived. And you lie beside it, a witness to its waiting. You understand now. The future is not rushed. It rests in stillness, until it can rise. You inhale slowly. The soil smells of time, of things beginning again, and again. And just before you drift deeper into this quiet dream, you begin to wonder if a seed knows when to wake. What else is waiting inside us? Quietly timed, ready to grow when we are. And what does it feel like? Not to wake alone, but to rise in harmony with others. Others who share the same sun, the same soil, the same silent courage to emerge. You follow that feeling now, as the dream takes you into the next field. A place where seeds rise not one by one, but side by side. Chapter 10, Fields that Rise Together. You awaken to movement. Soft, slow, collective. Not the rush of wind, but the rise of something ancient and shared. You are no longer beside a single seed. You are among thousands. A field in the first breath of dawn. Every stalk, every blade, leans gently into the light, with one quiet purpose, to grow. This is not chaos. It is coordination. Each plant draws from the same soil, feels the same warmth, drinks from the same sky. And yet, none compete. None overtake. Instead, they move together, like a tide of green remembering how to begin. You walk through them slowly. Their leaves brush your skin like notes in a lullaby. You hear nothing, yet you sense everything. Because plants, though rooted, are never still. They sense their neighbors. They space themselves, adjust their leaves, to catch light without stealing it. They release signals, airborne messages of comfort or alarm. I'm growing here. You're safe beside me. Beware the pest. This quiet network of sharing, of adjusting, responding, holding space, is how a field becomes a community. And now, with CRISPR, we begin to help that harmony flourish. You pause beside a patch of rice. Not just any rice, but rice that has been edited to better understand its neighbors. In the past, crops were bred for isolation, to grow big, fast, dominant. But those traits often created silent battles. Plants competing for light, choking one another in the race for survival. Now, scientists are using gene editing to reawaken cooperation. They are softening the competitive edge, gently tuning plants to grow together, not apart. You run your hand through the stalks. They part, then return. Like breath. These are not lonely plants. They are synchronized. You float now to a patch of beans, growing in dry soil. Their roots intertwine with microbes, and with each other, because they've been edited to send more signals below the surface, encouraging shared nutrient exchange. In this field, one plant's strength becomes another's resilience. You kneel, pressing your ear to the earth. There is no sound, but there is music, a kind of silent rhythm. You feel more than hear, a pulse of shared life. And you wonder, what else happens when plants are designed not for productivity alone, but for coexistence? Less waste, more balance. Fields that need fewer chemicals, because they support one another from root to leaf. You walk toward the edge of the field, and notice the boundary is not sharp. It blends gently into grasses, then into wildflowers. Even these have been edited, not to replace nature, but to support it. You see pollinators hovering near blossoms, drawn by scent and shape, carefully preserved. In this vision, agriculture does not push nature out. It welcomes her in. CRISPR is not a barrier. It is an invitation. A way of asking, how can we grow together without harm? You lie down now in the center of the field. The stalks lean above you, swaying in a rhythm older than words. They do not rise in silence. They rise in song. Together. And in this harmony, you feel a lesson take root inside you. Growth is not a solo act. It is a dance. Even in the world of plants, life reaches higher when it grows beside another. And as you close your eyes, with soil beneath and green above, you drift into a thought. What would it mean to build our cities the way a field grows? Not in competition, but in cooperation. What if technology didn't divide us from nature, but drew us closer to her rhythm? You follow that wonder now, into the dream of green architecture, where biology and design begin to grow from the same seed. Chapter 11, Cities that Breathe Like Forests. You awaken not in the wild, but beneath the shadow of towers. The city around you hums not with horns, but with birdsong. Vines climb the sides of glass buildings. Trees grow from balconies, their leaves trembling softly in the breeze. And on every rooftop, a garden drinks the morning sun. This is not a fantasy. It is a future already unfolding. You step into the street, where sidewalks ripple with roots beneath the stone, and benches are carved from living trunks. Here, biology is not confined to parks. It is the architecture itself. The walls breathe. Not metaphorically. Literally. They are lined with plants engineered to filter air, trap carbon, and release cool, clean oxygen. Their genes have been guided, gently, to thrive in urban wind, to bloom without deep soil, to endure pollution not as poison, but as challenge. These are CRISPR-adapted plants. Urban specialists. Green not only in color, but in purpose. You pause beside a vertical farm, growing from the side of an apartment tower. Rows of lettuce spiral upward, their roots misted with recycled water. Sensors track their needs. Sunlight slips through smart glass, filtered to the spectrum they love most. You touch a leaf. Cool. Alive. And part of the building itself. Because here, in this reimagined city, food is not shipped from faraway fields. It grows among us. On our walls, our windows, our rooftops. And the air feels different. Not just cleaner. Kinder. You walk through a public square where moss carpets the stone. Children run barefoot through shaded groves. The trees shaped not by nature alone, but by the questions scientists once asked. What if this species of maple could absorb more CO2? What if this variety of grass could cool pavement by 5 degrees? With CRISPR, they found the answers. Not by forcing traits, but by awakening dormant ones. They found ways to make plants that fit cities like roots find cracks in stone. And in doing so, they made cities that fit humans again. Not just machines. You pause in the middle of a bridge, watching the wind move through hanging gardens below. They sway like lanterns in the sky, each one catching sunlight, cooling the concrete beneath. It's hard to believe that once cities were designed without nature in mind. That plants were afterthoughts. Potted, trimmed, ornamental. Now, they are essential. They are infrastructure. You continue walking. In a quiet courtyard. A school wall pulses with green. A living facade of engineered algae. Turning light into energy. Air into clarity. Children inside trace the shapes of leaves on the glass. Learning photosynthesis. Not from a textbook, but from the wall itself. And you realize, this is not the past returning. It is the future remembering what the past forgot. That we are not separate from the world that grows. CRISPR did not create that truth. It simply made it easier to listen. It helped us find plants that thrive in the heat of the city, that survive on less soil, that filter toxins, that bloom in places plants were never meant to live. And in doing so, it gave us buildings that breathe, cities that feel like gardens, homes that feel like nests. You sit on the edge of a fountain. Its water recycled. Its basin filled with lilies. Engineered not to spread invasively, but to clean the water as they float. Even beauty, when guided with care, can serve function. The city doesn't hum with haste here. It pulses. Like a leaf beneath sunlight. Like a lung. And as twilight begins to fall, you watch the city lights flicker on. Not harsh fluorescence, but soft glows tucked among petals, woven into bark, reflected off rain-soaked green. You close your eyes and imagine A world where every human structure includes nature as a partner. Where cities don't conquer landscapes, but become part of them. And then a final thought. If we can build cities like forests, can we build our minds the same way? Can we shape our thinking to adapt, to regenerate, to grow in patterns that align with life? You follow that thought now, into a quieter space, where memory softens, and the brain begins its own silent edits. Chapter 12, The Garden Inside Your Mind. You are still in the city. But now the trees and towers fade into something softer, something closer. You close your eyes and open another landscape, one that lives within. It is dark, not because it lacks light, but because it holds depth. This is your brain, but not as a diagram, not as a tangle of gray and white. You see it now as a garden, an immense, intricate garden, without fences or borders, where thought grows like ivy, and emotion blooms like wildflowers, in unseen corners. This garden is always alive, even in sleep. It rearranges itself, even in silence. It listens. And just like any garden, it remembers the seasons that shaped it. Every pathway here was laid by use. Every shortcut carved by repetition. Every quiet corner shaped by experience. Some trails are smooth. Thoughts you walk often. Others are overgrown. Memories half forgotten. Or feelings you once buried. But the most extraordinary thing, this garden can change. Even now. This is the wonder of neuroplasticity. The brain's quiet, lifelong ability to rewire, reshape, regrow. It is not static. It does not fossilize with age. It is soft, like soil after the rain. And you are the gardener. Every new habit is a seed. Every shifted belief is a sprout. Every time you choose calm over fear, presence over panic, you shape a new path. You walk now beneath archways of old memory. Some joyful, some tangled. You notice a space where, but scientists, too, are learning how to help this garden heal. In deeper, more precise ways. With CRISPR and other tools. They are exploring how genes in the brain affect learning, memory, resilience. Some genes, when altered slightly, seem to unlock the brain's ability to recover from trauma more quickly. Others may influence how we form habits, how we forget pain, how we respond to stress. The work is early. It moves slowly, carefully, as it should, because the mind, while adaptable, is sacred ground. Still, the possibility stirs something in you. A future where mental health is supported not just with words, but with biology tuned gently toward peace. A future where inherited patterns of anxiety, of darkness, can be softened at the root. Not erased, but soothed. You wander deeper into this inner garden. You come to a place where two paths diverge. One is worn, familiar. The other is new. You choose the new one. And with each step, a thread of connection strengthens. A new neural link forming. It is small. But tomorrow, it will be stronger. This is neuroplasticity at work. The slow growth of new ways of thinking. New patterns. New peace. And it mirrors the work of CRISPR in the lab. Both are forms of gentle editing. Both ask the same question. How can we become more resilient? Without becoming less human. You walk now along a stream of thought. Its surface reflecting old fears. You do not dive in. You simply watch. You've learned how to stay still. How to breathe. How to allow the feeling without being swept away. The stream quiets. Another shift. Another path reformed. Above you, neurons light like constellations. Each one a spark. A memory. A tiny moment of learning. You are not broken. You are becoming. And the mind, like the seed, does not unfold all at once. It waits for safety. For care. For the right balance of rest and light. So tonight, you rest in this garden, knowing that even now, especially now, your brain continues to grow. Soft roots beneath new thoughts. Shoots rising from old pain. A canopy of memory. No longer overgrown. And as you lie down, in the center of your own mind, you whisper thanks. For the ability to change. To heal. To begin again. Because if the brain can grow like a forest, then perhaps consciousness itself is not a destination, but a living terrain. And just before you drift, you wonder, if the mind can grow new roots, can it also share its wisdom? Can it become part of a greater network? Not just of thought, but of life? You rise slowly into the next dream, where intelligence does not belong to humans alone, but is shared with all things that grow. Chapter 13, Intelligence in the Green. You step softly into the hush of trees. Not the manicured kind, but the old ones. Tall, sprawling, slow. Their bark is thick with time. Their roots stretch wide and deep. And in their silence, you feel something vast. Not emptiness. Not stillness. But presence. You are not alone in awareness here. The forest watches you. Not with eyes, but with patience. Each leaf turns to the sun with subtle calculation. Each root negotiates with fungi, trading sugars for minerals in balanced exchange. A fallen branch rots not in waste, but in offering, becoming food, shelter, story. You walk between trunks, and feel the weight of centuries, woven into the way the branches bend, the way the moss curls, the way the wind pauses, as it moves through. This is a different kind of intelligence. One not made of quick reaction, but of deep, unshakable rhythm. Plants are not unaware. They are simply tuned to a slower frequency. They sense light, moisture, gravity, touch. They signal one another. Electrically, chemically. When danger approaches. When drought tightens. When a branch is broken. The acacia tree, when bitten by a giraffe, releases a bitter chemical to its leaves, and warns nearby trees to do the same. The lima bean, when attacked by a caterpillar, calls wasps to its defense by sending a fragrant alarm into the air. These are not accidents. They are choices. Not made in a brain, but in the body. In cells. In the flow of ions and hormones. You kneel now beside a patch of clover. Its leaves cool and trembling. You press your palm to the earth. Beneath, the mycorrhizal network. A fungal web connecting root to root. Tree to tree. Stretches like the neural pathways of a vast forest mind. Some scientists call it the Wood Wide Web. But here, in the calm of night, it feels older than anything we've built. It is not just information that passes through. It is care. An old tree sends sugars to a struggling sapling. A mother tree slows its own growth to nourish the roots of its kin. You stand, staring up into the canopy. Some trees have stood here for hundreds of years. They have seen drought, fire, frost. And still they rise. Still they remember. We once believed intelligence needed speed, reaction, conscious awareness. But the forest reminds you. There is also wisdom in slowness. And science is listening now. Gently, curiously. With CRISPR, researchers have begun exploring how plant signaling works at the genetic level. What genes help a tree decide when to close its stomata? To save water during heat? What switches let roots sense imbalance and respond with sudden growth in a new direction? By understanding these tiny decisions, we begin to see the architecture of plant thought. Not metaphorical, but real. And not just to observe, but to partner. CRISPR may allow us to help plants learn faster, respond better to new threats. Climate shifts, new pests, new pathogens. Imagine trees that can adapt to rising heat. Not over centuries, but in decades. Imagine grasses that can regulate their water use without wilting in drought. But even as we explore these edits, we remember this. The forest is already intelligent. We are not giving it wisdom. We are only learning to hear it. You rest now at the foot of a tree, whose bark holds generations of memory. A deep, quiet awareness wraps around you, as if the tree remembers storms you have never lived through. And maybe it does. Because memory is not always a thing of words. Sometimes it is shape, pattern, the slow bending of a branch toward what the sun once was. And you begin to wonder, if plants think, do they dream? Do they long? Do they grieve? You will not know tonight. But the not knowing doesn't feel like a wall. It feels like an invitation to listen more, to assume less, to walk more slowly through the world that grows. And as you rise, brushing bark from your fingertips, you carry a gentle thought. What if intelligence isn't rare, but simply comes in forms we weren't trained to recognize? What if the next frontier of understanding isn't in making the natural world more like us, but in making ourselves quiet enough to become more like it? You walk now toward a clearing, where green meets machine, and the boundary between nature and invention begins to blur. Chapter 14, Where Nature Meets Invention. The trees thin as you walk, and the air shifts, not colder, not louder, but changed. At first, it feels like leaving the forest. But then you notice, the green doesn't stop. It adapts. Vines climb across glass facades. Leaves brush solar panels. As if to say, we belong here too. You've stepped into a new kind of space. Not wilderness, not machine. But something woven of both. This is where nature meets invention. Not as rivals, but as collaborators. The path beneath you is lined with bioluminescent moss, softly glowing with a light engineered to guide. It doesn't flicker like electricity. It pulses like a heartbeat. Each step feels like a conversation between the ancient and the newly born. Above, a canopy of carbon fiber frames supports hanging plants whose roots dangle free, pulling moisture from the air. Purified by nanofilters tucked into the structure's bones. It's not a greenhouse. It's a living system. Part plant, part design. Part code, part cell. You pause beside a column. It looks like stone. But when you touch it, you feel breath, warmth. Inside, genetically edited algae swirls silently, trapping carbon dioxide, releasing oxygen. A building that inhales. A building that participates. You step further in and notice your presence, triggering small changes. Lights dim. Shutters adjust. Plants shift slightly toward the warmth of your skin. These are not tricks of automation. They're responses. Because the plants here are tuned to perceive not just heat or motion, but patterns, light rhythms, air chemistry, sound vibrations. And with CRISPR, they've been given a little more sensitivity. Not forced, but enhanced. A fig tree by the wall has been edited to grow in cooler light, to bear fruit with fewer resources. Its roots are shallow but stable, designed to anchor in modular soil panels. Next to it, a bed of flowers bloom in patterns, dictated by environmental shifts. Air quality, temperature, noise levels. They are not ornamental. They are indicators. A gentle, floral dashboard. You realize, this place is not built on domination. It's built on dialogue. Every structure bends to biology. Every species adapts with intention. Here, architecture doesn't house nature. It includes it. And CRISPR. It's the quiet hand behind the curtain, helping species express traits that fit this new world. A world of shared spaces. Not all edits are flashy. Some are small. Subtle adjustments in growth speed, drought tolerance, leaf shape. But they matter. They help these plants survive. On rooftops, in vertical walls. On moving vehicles. Even in the skyports above. You think back to the seed. How it waited for the right moment. This is that moment. Because now, the seed grows in places it never could before. And not to the detriment of nature, but in its name. You sit near a low fountain, where water flows in spirals, through channels shaped like fern fronds. You realize the pattern isn't random. It's biomimicry. Technology copying nature's most efficient designs. And you wonder, what else can we learn? Not by overpowering life, but by watching it closely. From dragonfly wings, scientists craft antibacterial surfaces. From lotus leaves, they design water-repellent glass. From spider silk. They build stronger, lighter materials. And with CRISPR, they can trace the genes that make those features possible. Then apply them where needed. It's not imitation. It's evolution, accelerated. With care. You rise now. Feeling the pulse of the place. As if the building itself exhales with you. Nature and invention are no longer separate stories. They are chapters of the same book. Finally being read together. You look up. And in the curved beams of steel, you see the arc of a tree branch. In the flutter of sensors, you hear the buzz of a bee. In the glow of algae-lit corridors, you feel the whisper of moonlight through leaves. And just before you leave, you touch a panel covered in soft moss. It senses your touch, adjusts its hydration, and releases a breath of cool air. You smile. This isn't about technology replacing nature. It's about technology remembering her. And in that remembering, a new kind of intelligence takes root. One where human minds and natural systems learn from one another. And now, as you prepare to rest again, you wonder, if nature can teach machines to adapt, can it also teach them to care? Can a circuit learn patience? Can code learn humility? You follow that thought into the quiet, where not just plants, but intelligence itself is being redefined. Chapter 15, When Intelligence Takes Root. Not all intelligence lives in a skull. The air is softer here, thicker with mist and meaning. You feel it before you see it. A sense that something around you is noticing. Not watching. Not judging. Just quietly, deeply aware. You stand in a grove. Not wild. Not engineered. But something in between. The trees here have grown differently. Not taller. But wiser. You feel it in the way they lean. In the way their roots twist toward one another. In the shimmer beneath their bark. That almost resembles breath. This grove is part of an experiment. Not in how trees grow, but in how they remember. Because memory, as it turns out, is not just a trait of brains. It is also a trait of systems. Plants, for instance, remember drought. They recall poor seasons, adjusting how they flower or fruit the next time. Some store stress in their tissues. Molecular echoes of what once was. Not emotion, but adaptation. A kind of learning. And now, scientists, biologists, geneticists, designers of living systems, are beginning to explore what it means when life beyond animals begins to process information. Not just react. Process. A vine curls toward a specific wavelength of light. A root system shifts to avoid toxins before reaching them. A plant stunted by one winter grows shorter the next, preparing. These aren't reflexes. They are predictions. Anticipations born of biology. You sit beneath one of these trees. Its leaves slightly silvered. Engineered with a gene from desert moss. To help it retain memory of heat. It remembers temperature extremes. And adjusts its growth accordingly. A small thing. But over time, it means survival. This is biological intelligence. A wisdom stored not in neurons, but in cellular patterns. chemical flows, genetic rhythms, and CRISPR. It lets us tune into those patterns, gently guiding them, without silencing their native language. A cactus modified to learn how to store more water after one dry year. A crop that remembers flood and builds stronger stems the season after. These are not smart machines. They are thoughtful plants. Their decisions are slow, invisible, mostly. But they are there. And you feel them. Each breath of this grove carries with it not just air, but data, experience, life filtered through response. You run your fingers over the leaves. They quiver, but not in fear. They are listening. You wonder what it means for intelligence to live without urgency, without ego, without hierarchy. Here, knowledge is not claimed. It is shared. Through spores, through root signals, through slow adaptations that ripple across generations. And isn't that a kind of wisdom, more lasting than memory? You lie back, looking up through branches that hold the memory of sunrises you've never seen. You think of your own thoughts, fast, looping, sometimes anxious, and you marvel at the contrast. Because this kind of intelligence is not about control. It's about response, not force. Resonance. The tree doesn't push. It leans. The vine doesn't command. It reaches. And you begin to wonder, what if the future of thinking is not about thinking harder, but softer? Not about faster answers, but deeper questions. You rise and follow the winding path out of the grove. It leads you past other systems. Tall reeds that track sound vibrations. Ferns that alter their leaf shape based on air pressure. Each one has been carefully, respectfully guided. Not redesigned, but reminded of possibilities hidden in their code. This is the gift of CRISPR. When used with reverence, not to rewrite nature's wisdom, but to listen closer to it. To find the genes that hold memory, response, foresight, and allow them to shine more clearly. You step into the clearing and look back one last time. The grove hums behind you, a slow symphony of quiet decisions, a living archive of what it means to think without noise. And as night deepens, you feel a question bloom inside you. If plants can remember, what might they dream of? And what dreams might we share with them? If we learn to listen long enough, you follow that gentle wondering into the next breath, where the soil holds more than roots. It holds instructions for everything yet to grow. And now, we come to rest. The journey began with a seed. Small, silent, full of potential. From desert roots to dreaming forests. You wandered through worlds where life listens, learns, and leans gently toward light. You've seen how science doesn't stand apart from nature, but flows within it. Through genes, through roots, through thoughtful edits. Meant not to control, but to understand. CRISPR was never the main character here. You were. You, and the way your breath softened. As you walked through fields that share. Cities that breathe. Minds that rewire. and ecosystems that speak in silence. You've heard the quiet wisdom of plants, felt the soft pulse of biological memory, stood still beneath trees that think without thought, and care without speech. And now, as the final light dims across this story, there is nothing more to do. No questions left to hold. No knowledge to chase. Only stillness. Let the science drift now into dream. Let every root and leaf and starfold of DNA settle gently at the edges of your awareness. You have wandered far enough. The soil has spoken. The mind has listened. And your body, too, knows it's time to rest. So close your eyes. Return softly to your breath. And let the quiet of the living world carry you into sleep. Good night. From Sleepy Paradise.